So let's continue with our session on overview of diagnosis. Let's not forget that without diagnosis, medicine is blind. What are the prerequisites for diagnosis stewardship? The surveillance sites must have relevant clinical, laboratory, epidemiological, and data management capacity. The more detailed description of requirements of surveillance sites can be found in the National Antimicrobial Resistance Surveillance System and participation in the Global Antimicrobial Surveillance System. The mnemonic is GLASS. It's a guide to planning, implementation, and monitoring and evolution. Access to the laboratory with good quality management capacity and capability to perform microbiology diagnostics according to recognized standards is essential in order to implement diagnostic stewardship activities. Assessment of condition for implementation of diagnostic stewardship at the surveillance site. An initial review of existing SOPs, policies, protocols, guidelines, human material and financial resources, and outstanding needs should be conducted prior to planning and implementing diagnostic stewardship activities at the surveillance site. The review should consider clinical laboratory and surveillance capacity, including quality management, procurement needs, and transportation and courier system. Any potential barriers and constraints that could impede the use of microbiology diagnostics should be identified and documented. Regarding resources and budget, a budget for the implementation of diagnostic stewardship activities at the surveillance site should be formulated and approved by the senior management of the surveillance site. The budget for diagnostic stewardship should be part of the overall budget of the surveillance site. Cost estimation should consider the requirement at each stage of the diagnostic pathway, including the cost of developing and adapting local guidelines and SOPs, and the cost of developing and implementing training materials. Regarding roles and responsibilities of the team, the responsibility for delivering good microbiology diagnostic services is shared equally across clinical and lab staff at the surveillance site. Both teams have key roles to play in the process. The successful implementation of diagnostic stewardship at the surveillance sites requires a multidisciplinary team approach, as well as institutional commitment, including the allocation of appropriate human, financial, and logistic resources. The multidisciplinary team should be mandated by the senior management to implement diagnostic stewardship activities at the surveillance site and should report back on a regular basis. The composition of the team at the surveillance site should reflect the existing organization and administrative structures, but should aim to include the representation of clinical staff, microbiology staff, and surveillance or epidemiological staff. Regarding the scope of the work, the scope of the work of the multidisciplinary team could include development, adoption, and implementation of quality management practices, including local guidelines and SOPs for specimen selection, collection, transport, lab testing, and reporting. Review and oversight of training needs, activities, including supported supervision for diagnostic stewardship at the surveillance site. Promotion of good diagnostic stewardship at referral sites, particularly if one laboratory in one facility serves several surveillance sites. Monitoring of progress of the diagnostic stewardship activities. Convening of regular team meetings to present and discuss lab results and issues. Present progress in implementation. Identify and address administrative, technical, operational, and logistic issues. Establishment of links with the antimicrobial stewardship program, infection control program, and the committee. Participation in local surveillance data management for reporting and development of local treatment guidelines. What are the key areas of responsibility for each of the different professionals of the multidisciplinary team involved in diagnostic stewardship? For clinicians, it is to ensure correct indication for sampling and sample selection, ensure complete and correct clinical, demographic, and epidemiological patient information, interpret and act on the laboratory results to optimize patient management, then correct specimen using the appropriate techniques, label the specimens appropriately, and complete all documentation accurately, ensure transportation and if indicated, appropriate storage while awaiting transportation. For the laboratory staff, the responsibilities include to record receipt of the specimens upon arrival, ensure processing of the specimens according to SOPs, read and record results including interpretation and confirmation by the respective lab staff, provide clinicians with the timely results and patient management advice, provide on-call services for follow-up of the request, queries from the clinical team, and urgent testing requests beyond working hours, provide accurate and timely data to surveillance staff, and implement and enforce quality control procedures. So that was about the responsibilities of the lab staff, while for the surveillance staff, the responsibilities include ensure appropriate compilation and analysis of patient, clinical, demographical, and epidemiological and microbiological data. Ensure dissemination of compiled and analyzed results to all the healthcare workers and lab staff at the facility. Ensure the results are transmitted to staff responsible for developing guidelines. Ensure transmission of regular reports and alerts to the National Surveillance Coordinating Center. So that was about the responsibilities of clinical laboratory and surveillance. Now let's move towards communication. Communication is a critical component of diagnostic stewardship. Good communication between the different professionals involved, mainly the lab, clinical, and surveillance teams, plays a critical role. In some circumstances, the laboratory will be located in surveillance site. In others, the surveillance site may have a link to an external lab providing the services. Either way, the clinical and the surveillance team and the laboratory must agree on the communication mechanism and channels. This will extend to communication of unusual or unexpected signals and suspected outbreaks. Clinical staff should be aware of the working hours for the specimen reception and processing, and the availability of on-call laboratory services for requests related to microbiology, such as microbiology consultation services. Training. It is vital that all professionals at each stage of the diagnostic workflow are fully aware of their respective roles and responsibilities and are able to perform the duties appropriately. It is said that eyes can see what the mind doesn't know. Knowledge and training and education play a critical role. Training should be conducted for clinical, laboratory, and surveillance staff on case finding and relevant diagnostic activities at surveillance sites. Local guidelines and SOPs should be developed and adopted by clinical, laboratory, and surveillance staff and disseminated through tailored training. Specific areas of training include introductory training for all the staff involved in diagnostic stewardship, whether it is a clinical team, lab team, or surveillance team, with clear definition of the roles and responsibilities, additional trainings, and for the multidisciplinary members in relevant communication skills, including clear instructions on the coordination and tasks of the multidisciplinary team. Then training the data management at the surveillance side as a component of the diagnostic feedback process. Training for the clinical staff in conducting relevant diagnostic activities, such as case finding, criteria, and indications for specimen collection. Provide correct and complete information in requisite forms. And on transportation and collection and storage at the surveillance site before transport. Additional training needs include interpretation of the laboratory results and choice of best therapeutic option based on lab results and effective communication with the microbiologist. Any changes to the surveillance approach should be accompanied by appropriate training. Training for lab staff and SOPs for pathogen detection and for bacterial species identification and sensitive testing include effective communication with the clinical staff. Then the National Reference Laboratory, which serves as a resource and coordination point for lab expertise, could support the laboratory serving surveillance sites by developing, maintaining, and sharing relevant reference material for good laboratory practice. The National Reference Laboratory should also facilitate participation in external quality assurance schemes. So that was about the trainings. Let us see the monitoring and evaluation mechanism of the diagnostic program. So it starts with planning, then inputs, processes, outputs, and then the outcomes. In planning, we do a SWOT analysis, that is a situation analysis for the resources and need assessment. Then in inputs, fundings are provided at for the clinical laboratory and surveillance site. Local guidelines and SOPs for the diagnostic stewardship are provided. Trained and capacitated staff on local diagnostic stewardship guidelines should be in place. Microbiology lab facilities with equipments and consumables should be ensured, and then communication protocols and facilities should be provided. So this all comes under the inputs or the needed resources. So what are the processes or activities? It includes mobilization and management of funds, development of SOPs, protocols and guidelines, development and implementation of the training materials, implementation of training courses, internal and external quality assurance, regular procurement, and maintenance of the equipment and consumables. Then agreed means and frequency of communication among clinical lab and surveillance staff. So that is about the processes. What are the outputs of from this inputs and processes? It includes sustainable financing and resources available on a regular basis, common understanding of the protocols, staff trained and capacitated, leading to compliance with the local guidelines and protocols, increase in the specimens submitted to the laboratory according to SOPs, and good laboratory practices in place. Patient treatment and surveillance actions are informed in a timely manner. So these are the outputs or results. What is the outcome of the outputs, inputs, and processes? The outcome is patient treatment is guided by timely microbiological data, resulting in safer and more efficient patient care. Then accurate and representative antimicrobial resistance surveillance data is in place to inform the treatment guidelines and AMR control strategies. That was all from the 3 sessions of diagnostic stewardship overview. Thank you all of you for your kind attention.